The more I listen to various Dacs and amps, the more it becomes clear that there are seldom material differences in sound quality, no matter what price bracket you delve into. If your mindset is to buy the most flashy, the most coveted, the most hyped audiophile gear, then you will find a way to justify that expense. But the word audiophile to me means simply somebody who loves listening to their music. You don't have to love the associated gear, which frankly tends to distract people from just enjoying what they've already got. I find affordable alternatives to the hyped and coveted products among the audiophile jargon-laden ads and commentaries. Today, we're going into the sub-$100 DAC amp realm once again. We're taking a look at the Hidizs S3 Pro, a $70 dongle DAC from a company that has made a name for itself by targeting the sub-$500 market. Hi-Fi Go sent me the S3 Pro to review. As you probably know, Hi-Fi Go is among a few online resellers that provides access to a lot of hi-fi gear. You'll find the exotic along with the mundane. If you fancy spending some time looking at the various Chinese products, head over to Hi-Fi Go's website. Now, let's talk about the S3 Pro. Hidizs says that the S3 Pro is the ultra-portable lossless DAC. They're using an ESS 9281C Pro DAC. This chip is in a few other devices, including the more expensive DAC. Hidizs says that the S3 Pro will render all PCM up to 32-bit at 384 kHz, DSD 128, and MQA. The S3 Pro is supposedly fully compatible with Apple Music's spatial audio format. However, you do need to use the Lightning OTG cable for Apple compatibility. Hidizs has 3 firmwares that they claim will provide different tuning. They have a balanced, treble, and bass firmwares. On Hidizs' website, they show you a vague graph that depicts the sound alterations. The S3 Pro has a neat feature that most portable DAC amps don't. The S3 Pro lets you use headphone or earphone cables with inline microphones and playback controls. This means that you can use the S3 Pro with a headset or inline microphone. Hidizs says that the S3 Pro provides 55 milliwatts into 32 ohms. The S3 Pro is a fairly small product. It's made of metal. The non-detachable cable is pliable and looks quite nice. It has copper-colored and gray sheathing. The S3 Pro has USB-C connection into your device. The S3 Pro has only a single-ended 3.5mm headphone jack. On top, there's a tiny LED which changes among 3 colors to identify whether you're playing CD quality PCM, high-res PCM, or MQA. To update among the firmware options, you have to download the firmware package from Hidizs. Obviously, this means you cannot switch among the different profiles on the fly. You have to manually install the various tunings each time you want to change them. This means A/B tests are impossible without a second device. Ultimately, the S3 Pro is not the smallest DAC amp on the market, but it is built quite well. It does not have any noteworthy playback features. Indeed, there are alternatives under $100 that can render high-resolution audio PCM or DSD, just like the S3 Pro. There are also a few affordable products that render MQA. However, the S3 Pro theoretically has 2 noteworthy features that separates it from the pack. First, it's firmware tuning. We will try to put this to some kind of test later, even though it will be unreliable due to the firmware installation process. The second standout feature is the ability to use inline controls and microphones with the S3 Pro. If there's anything Hidizs demonstrates with the S3 Pro, it's this. You can get well-constructed, full-feature DAC amps for under $100. It makes you kind of wonder why you would ever spend money on Audioquest's Dacs. With audio gear, you can do one of 3 things. You can think about their performance entirely subjectively, or you can be a champion of objective measurements, or you can stand the middle ground and use a bit of both. I try to use the third method. Objective measurements are helpful to determine the truthfulness of claims, such as power output. However, other measurements, such as frequency response, is not exact and should be viewed with several grains of salt. That is where listening comes into play. But listening without comparing is pointless. That is why in my tests I use A/B tests to determine if I can hear any material differences. I challenge every reviewer to do the same. For the S3 Pro, I reviewed the measurements ASR obtained. I did not see anything particularly noteworthy. You can look them up for yourself if you want some entertainment. I listened to the S3 Pro using various devices. This included my PC, Mac, iPhone, and Android phone. I used IEMs like the Moondrop Quarks, the Aria, the Tin Hi-Fi T2, and the ATH E70. I also listened with my Audioquest 4, Sennheiser HD6XX, and the Beyerdynamic DT1990. I further compared the S3 Pro against the EcoZerta ITM03 and the Audioquest Dragonfly Cobalt. For these comparisons, I plugged two devices into my laptop and used Voicemeeter Banana to send signal to both at once. I connected their headphone outputs to a passive A/B switch, then listened with my various gear. This allowed me a chance to not only volume match through Voicemeeter, but also to listen closely for any alterations. I conducted these tests listening to the stock firmware on the S3 Pro. We will talk about the alternative firmware later. The foremost question for a lot of people will be this: how does the S3 Pro sound? Does it sound good, great, amazing? Those are subjective, ambiguous terms. They mean nothing to anyone except to the person uttering them. So I'm not going to answer the "how does it sound" question. Instead, we should focus on the more common sense performance. The question that I can answer is the following: what is the S3 Pro's sound signature, and does it differ from the Cobalt and the Zerta? There are several takeaways about the S3 Pro. When I listened to it with my various headphones and not comparing to the other products, using my PC, Mac, LG V30, and the iPad Pro, I never had an issue connecting. It was plug and play for all devices. This is expected in 2021 and not anything exceptional. However, it is something you can at least count on. There is also no audible distortion or hiss from the S3 Pro. Using headphones and sensitive IEMs resulted in the same conclusion. Without THX gimmickry or uber low distortion measurements, the S3 Pro has practically silent operation. With respect to the sound signature, it appears to be neutral. There was no obvious alteration in bass, mids, or treble. When you look at the graph Hidizs provides, you get the impression that the tuning is V or U-shaped. That isn't the experience, at least not with the stock firmware. This makes me question the graph's veracity and reliability. Maybe it's just an exaggerated illustration that is not supposed to be taken seriously, and frankly, that's how I'm going to approach it. I am thoroughly familiar with the Allo S4, S4X, and the S4R, which are among the most neutral headphones I've heard. I've done many comparisons with them. The S3 Pro never seemed to alter the presentation of any of these headphones. Their particular sibilance and treble emphasis did not become decreased or increased through the S3 Pro. The sound signature of these headphones did not seem obviously different on the S3 Pro than when I've used these headphones with other neutral sources. I reached similar conclusions when I listened to the S3 Pro with the Moondrop Quarks and the Aria, the AKG K371, the HD6XX, and the ATH E70. I never got the impression that the sound signatures of any of these devices was being altered or manipulated by the S3 Pro. Consequently, my impression, before doing any comparisons to the other DAC amps, was that the S3 Pro is neutral. And when I say neutral, I mean that there is no obvious coloration to the sound or influence on the headphones or IEMs. Let's move on to comparisons. I did head-to-head tests with the S3 Pro against the EcoZerta ITM03 and the Audioquest Cobalt. I described previously how I set this up. Compared to the Zerta, the S3 Pro has no audible difference in bass response. Sub-bass rendition is exactly the same. Going back and forth, after volume matching, the experience was precisely the same on both devices. The mids response was also exactly the same. Placement of vocals, timbre, decay, separation, all aspects of the mids frequency was indistinguishable. Treble response also sounded, again, exactly the same. Irrespective of which headphones or IEMs I tried, the Zerta and S3 Pro had identical rendition of treble. Separation, clarity, detail, and emphasis was not just similar, but actually the same. Next, I compared the S3 Pro to the Cobalt. I volume matched the two devices. Once again, there wasn't a single audible difference. Bass, mids, treble, clarity, separation, nothing was different in a true A/B test. As a control test, I listened to the S3 Pro and the Dragonfly Red. I again volume matched. Here, there was an audible difference. The Red has a warmer sound signature. Clarity in the bass region is more obvious on the S3 Pro. Bass decay seems to be slightly longer on the Red. Clarity overall is more noticeable on the S3 Pro. The Dragonfly Red is a warmer sounding DAC. I have found this to be the case every time I've compared the Red to any other DAC amp. The fact that it performed the same against the S3 Pro indicates two things. First, that my testing gear is not a limiting factor. Since I could hear obvious differences between the Dragonfly Red and the S3 Pro, my equipment was not to blame for not hearing any differences between the S3 Pro and the Cobalt or the Ecozerta. The second thing is that when there are noticeable differences in DAC tuning, it can be determined without any specialized gear. You just need to do an A/B test and be honest with the process. The S3 Pro's sound signature is neutral. It is as neutral as that of the Ecozerta ITM03 and the Dragonfly Cobalt. Without resorting to any THX or jitterbug foolishness, the S3 Pro is capable of rendering music that contains inaudible noise. My tests also indicate that the S3 Pro has no problems whatsoever driving headphones up to 300 ohms, such as the HD6XX. While you can achieve slightly more impactful bass and marginally clearer mids with more power into the HD6XX, the S3 Pro does provide enough power to enjoy this headphone. However, the S3 Pro will struggle to drive 600 ohm headphones at peak performance. This device is also not suited for planar magnetic headphones of any kind. Remember, planar magnetic drivers need more power than their dynamic driver counterparts. While you can listen to your Hi-Fi Man, Audeze, or Monolith planars on the S3 Pro and get fairly loud volumes, the drivers won't perform at peak. Because somebody is bound to ask whether the S3 Pro can drive the Modhouse Argon, here's the answer. No. The T50RP and its mods all require 1 watt of power for peak performance. The S3 Pro has MQA rendering up to 8x. Look, I'm not a fan of MQA or Tidal. A few years ago, I did the comparisons and tests between Tidal and MQA versus Spotify, Qobuz, and Amazon Music HD. While Tidal and MQA provided a marginal difference in quality compared to Spotify, it was clearly not to the same level as Amazon Music HD and Qobuz. Meridian, the people behind the MQA marketing machine, claim that MQA is lossless. Well, they used to claim that on their website, but over the last few years, serious concerns about the veracity of this claim became public. I think it's safe to conclude, after reviewing the data and Meridian's ever-evolving explanations, that MQA is not lossless. Or, to put it another way, MQA is as lossless Bluetooth, and there is no such thing as lossless Bluetooth. Having said that, I don't care what others use. If you like Tidal and prefer MQA, that's fine by me. You do you. I'm happy with my CD quality FLAC and have no intention of burning money on DSD. But I think we should address the MQA compatibility on the S3 Pro. Hidizs says that the S3 Pro supports, quote, all lossless music streaming services such as Tidal Masters, end quote. This is careful use of wording. Tidal Masters is the same thing as MQA. When Hidizs says that the S3 Pro supports lossless audio such as Tidal Masters, I don't think they're being accurate. MQA is Tidal Masters. MQA is lossy. Consequently, Tidal Masters is lossy. The other thing about Hidizs' marketing is the use of the 8x MQA slogan. What is that? Basically, what this means is that the MQA folding compresses audio files into, for example, a 48 kHz container file, which is then streamed to you. On the S3 Pro, using Tidal, that 48 kHz container file can be unfolded to a maximum of 8x sample rate. What is 48 times 8? 384. So theoretically, the S3 Pro can render MQA up to 384 kHz. But of course, the original file that was folded by MQA has to be 384 kHz. If the original file was 150 kHz folded down to 48 kHz, then the S3 Pro can only play the original 150 kHz file after the unfolding process. In other words, the S3 Pro does not upscale MQA to 8 times the original resolution. It can merely unfold up to 8 times the container file, and that is entirely dependent upon the original MQA file before the folding happened. Are you confused yet? Don't worry if you are, that's just how Meridian intended. The bottom line is that there's a long series of steps and expenditures before you hear the benefits of MQA. FLAC doesn't need any special stuff, it just works. Anyway, I want to point out that the Dragonfly Cobalt also supports MQA, but it does not support 8x MQA like the S3 Pro, and the Cobalt costs $300. Just food for thought. As I mentioned earlier in this review, the S3 Pro has 3 firmware options that Hidizs says will let you tune the sound signature. On their website, Hidizs provides a vague graph that supposedly indicates the sound alterations the S3 Pro is capable of achieving through the various firmware. Downloading and installing the firmware is easy enough. You have to download a firmware burn tool and select the firmware you want. Once the firmware is installed, you can use the S3 Pro normally. Unfortunately, there is no way to do real A/B tests with the firmware. Since I don't have a second S3 Pro, I cannot verify whether there is any obvious difference in sound. Generally speaking, I thought there might have been some very minor differences among the tunings. The bass tuning seems to add a bit of mid-bass impact. The treble tuning might add a little bit of mid and upper treble emphasis, but this could all just have been my imagination. Honestly, I can't tell you how much difference is present among these 3 options. It's equally possible that there are audible differences as it is that there are no audible differences. Hidizs should have provided actual numerical clarity about this. They could have told us in what specific frequency range these alterations are supposedly taking place and by how much. Also, I am not convinced that the firmware is actual EQ. I have a strong suspicion this is merely DAC filters being applied. If you've watched my reviews for a while, then you know I hate DAC filters. They are a gimmick, and when I have conducted A/B comparisons, I can't hear any meaningful differences. Other people can disagree with me, and that's fine. The bottom line is that the firmware tuning is not the reason I would ever recommend this product. Every few months, we get a new DAC or amp in the market. A lot of times we get the same DAC chipset as in previous iterations. Sometimes we get the newest flagship DAC chip, and some audiophiles automatically think that the flagship sounds better than the lower model DAC. In fact, there is a huge misunderstanding about DACs. They have one purpose: to convert digital signal to analog. That's it. There was a time decades ago when you could find some variation in the market, back when we still had Wolfson, Burr Brown, ESS, and AKM, among other smaller manufacturers, vying for dominance. But now, Wolfson is basically gone. Good luck finding any modern DACs with that chip. And Burr Brown is phased into obsolescence. The only 2 major players are ESS and AKM AKM's factory burned to a crisp last year, and they're not back to the same production level as before. So that leaves ESS as the sole player. The point is that we had some kind of variety in the past. Now everything seems to be neutral. That's neither good nor bad, it simply is. I personally would prefer more options, more coloration among DAC chips, but we're not getting that. When people tell you that every DAC sounds different, it's highly unlikely they've spent any time doing true A/B tests. Once you do them, you start to realize that the audiophile myth that every DAC is different is just that, a nonsensical audiophile myth. The S3 Pro is a neutral performer. Its sound signature is as neutral as that of the $100 EcoZerta ITM03 and the $300 Dragonfly Cobalt. While this may be difficult for some people to accept, true A/B comparisons are hard to reject. The S3 Pro has no audible hiss or noise in the signal. This once again highlights the pointless hype behind THX and special noise reduction circuitry ostensibly built inside some of Audioquest products. You don't need brand name and trademark technology to achieve inaudible noise levels. The S3 Pro is portable and built well. I'm not personally a fan of the tethered design and would prefer a small form factor device like the Auderic Atom 2, but that's just a personal preference. The S3 Pro can easily drive headphones up to 300 ohms like the HD6XX. Anything beyond that would be less than desirable. But clearly this device will cover a wide swath of audiophile headphones. Planar magnetic headphones are categorically unsuitable, and specialty headphones like the T50RP should not be used with the S3 Pro. All of this brings us to value. Yes, the S3 Pro is value. For about $70, you get plenty of functionality. This device allows you to listen to the vast majority of high-resolution audio, and let's be honest, very few people actually have DSD libraries. Most audiophiles are happy with their CD quality resolution, and many seem to live their lives contentedly streaming content from low-resolution services such as Spotify. Moreover, the S3 Pro supports MQA. It's about time we started getting more sub-$100 MQA-compatible Dacs. I think it's a little comical that this $70 device provides higher MQA support than Audioquest's flagship DAC, which costs $300. If you're looking for an affordable, well-built DAC that will easily work with your file formats and a great many headphones and IEMs, then the S3 Pro is yet one more alternative in the market. It's a good product among other good products, all of which should dissuade you from buying the overpriced Audioquest DACs.